What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPaPa, and oh my goodness, more data, more things that are going on at a macro level in the hobby, and I couldn't possibly be more excited. So yesterday, we did our deep dive into PSA grading trends last month, and we looked at the most graded cards, most graded sets, most graded characters, gem rates, all kinds of really cool things. And now today, we're going to be looking at the top 10 cards that exchanged hands the most on TCG Player last month. We've been doing this every month for I don't know how long. And this is another one of those video series that we do where I always walk away with some really impactful learnings. We have been able to identify trends, we have found support lines, we have said, hey, listen, this feels like a really good time to buy, and a lot of the times we end up being correct. So that is one of the reasons that I've continued to do this season, or this series, and why I find so much value in it. So we're not just gonna look at the cards. Obviously the cards will be shown. We're also gonna look at the price of those cards and how they've moved either over the last month or 3 months or 1 year, depending on when the card came out. But we're also gonna have this little star system right here. So I'm going to put a star for every consecutive month that a card has been on this list, because it's exciting to see these cards and how they retain their value and how long people have been buying and selling them feverishly on TCG Player. I also include a graph of the sealed product that it comes from, because a lot of times we either see them move in lockstep, or even more importantly, when we see them not moving in lockstep, it could give us an idea that one of them is undervalued compared to the other. So we do a lot of really cool fun stuff here on this video. It's not just going to be 10 random cards popping up on a screen in front of you. We try and go a little bit deeper, as we always do here on the PikaPikaPaPa channel. So with that being said, listen, if you enjoy these kind of data dives, if you love these kinds of trends analysis, we do fun stuff like this all the time on the channel. So if it gets you fired up, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. And as always, if you like what you see, give us a big old thumbs up. We got a small channel here. Those 3 small things go a long way in helping us out, and I really appreciate it. So with that out of the way, I always start this list off with the cards that fell off from last month. And I will tell you, we had some stunner of a cards that fell off from last month to this month. And guess what? This list will take on many different shapes and forms. Sometimes it's pure collecting and investing cards. There's no doubt about it. We see the biggest of the big names on here. And then sometimes in a month like this month, we're gonna see some cards that are driven by collectability and also by playability. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's one of the many things I love about this hobby. You can just collect it, you can invest in it, you can play it. I mean, that makes Pokemon absolutely far and away one of the best spaces to be in as far as I'm concerned. So this month we're gonna see some playability cards on here. But in order to make room for them, some of these cards had to drop off. So the 1999 Charizard card fell off the list this month. Now listen, that card comes on and off the list from time to time. The fact that that card from that beginning era comes on the list at all just gives me all kinds of warm fuzzies inside. I love to see it on here. The Iono from Paldean Fates, off the list, bye-bye. There's all kinds of different Iono options out there. Obviously a card driven by a lot of playability. This one also has some awesome art to it and a couple bucks behind it, but it fell off the list this month. The Charizard from Obsidian Flames finally fell off. I think this card was on the list for 7 consecutive months, so I was actually really surprised to see it fall off this list. Listen, Obsidian Flames might not go down as the best Charizard set of all time, but I'm going to tell you right now, there are some really hard gems to pull from that set, and this Charizard isn't quite as bad as everybody makes it out to be, at least in my opinion. And then the Rayquaza from Evolving Skies, the number 2 to the Moonbreon, fell off the list this month. As I said, we don't only look at the singles card prices, we also look at the booster box prices. As you might imagine, there's going to be a card from Evolving Skies on this list further on, and guess what? The booster boxes are starting to settle down a little bit, so the Rayquaza was one of the one of the casualties of that settling down and fell off the list. But don't worry, we have all kinds of awesome cards to continue to look at, and we're going to start with one from Temporal Forces, which is obviously driven by playability right here. And spoiler alert, you're going to see a lot of cards from that set on this list. Now, the Iron Crown EX right here, obviously not the big bad Iron Crown from that set, but again, when you're filling your deck to play, you don't always need the biggest and the baddest. Now, one thing we don't always see is this card is on the list, but it is falling in price. If you look at it over the last month, it has come down almost 50%. Now, the Pokemon pop and flop is not uncommon. We see that a lot, and obviously this is the newest set that's come out, so not super surprising. But as we see other cards from this set, you'll see that a lot of them are actually gaining in value, and that's why I think this list is really valuable to talk about, because some of the cards I've found that I have, and I didn't even realize that they were popping off in price because I'm not big into the game. I'm strictly a collector and an investor. Now, the booster box itself has come down. It was at, $115 $3 months ago, and it's down to $180 right now. So that box is going to stay in that range, probably lower for the foreseeable future. So absolutely no hair on fire going after that one. Now, the number 9 right here, this Maximum Belt, you will see this has been on the list 2 months in a row. And when we talked about this last month, it's an Ace Spec card. You can only have 1 per deck. So I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to be able to be on this list. You don't need 4 copies of it. You can only have 1 copy. So I didn't know if there was going to be enough people needing it to keep it in the top 10. But what do I know? Guess what? Not only is it in the top 10? It's been here 2 months in a row, and another card that is actually falling in price. Now, there's a reason for that. We're going to see it later on in this video, but again, 2 months in a row for an Ace Spec card. I think that's really important to understand moving forward, because we got a lot more Ace Spec cards to come ahead of us, and understanding how the big ones perform is really, really important. So the next one we're looking at right here, Morty's Conviction. I've made no secret of it. You know I absolutely love Gengar, and as much as I love Gengar, this can't be the big Gengar card, right? Like, this won't be it for Scarlet and Violet. If it is, I'm going to be terribly disappointed. This was one of the cards where people just absolutely freaked the you-know-what out. They heard that pull rates were really low. We all know that Gengar has a huge, huge track record of really strong success. So this card popped up to like $90 almost overnight, and now it's been slowly working its way down. It's still in the $60 range, but I think that the pull rates on this set aren't quite as bad as a lot of us make them out to be. Maybe they are. I don't know. I keep hearing mixed things. You know, certain people publish all of these numbers, but then when I talk to people, I won't say IRL in the real life, but when I talk to people in the Discord, it seems like the pull rates are a little bit better. Who knows? All I'm going to say is this card is starting to come back down. I hope a lot of us didn't FOMO over it. As much as I love Gengar, I'm still not paying $60 for this card. I'm going to let it settle for a little while and see where it ends up, but still excited to see it there at the top, because hey, I love me some Gengar. Now the very next one right here is another card that I am low-key obsessed with. I am absolutely head over heels in love with this Magicarp card from Paldea Evolved. I have done a ton of research into this. I have done a ton of presentations with you all as to why I love it. And guess what? Well, last time I did a presentation on this one, it was at the $100 mark, and I was sitting here saying, hey, I don't know if this can be a $100 card. Like, I think it's too early. There's going to be more reprints of Paldea Evolved. Like, it has got to fall. But guess what? Over the last couple weeks, it's stayed in the $100 range. It doesn't mean it's going to continue to be there. Again, I still think that this card has to fall back down, but Paldea Evolved is a sleeper set as far as I'm concerned. This is a sleeper card. It is a really, really hard card to pull centered and without print lines. Like, this thing is absolutely murderous if you're trying to get PSA 10s, and last I saw PSA 10s were selling for about $600 a part. Well, guess what? When you have these hard gem rates, when you got a big chase card like this, look at the booster box price. Now, $110 isn't a lot of money for a booster box, and again, these are probably going to be reprinted in the future, but $110 for a booster box that is this brand new, that is a relatively steady price. Like, that's nothing to shake a fist at right there. So I think a lot of people in the market are really starting to, you know, kind of buy in to this Paldea Evolved theory. And this card, I don't care if it drops to $50. I still am a big, big believer in this as long as the gem rate stays super low. And I've got 2 of them in the collection, and I'm certainly looking to add more, and I'm not even joking about that. So the next one right here, another one that's been on here 2 months in a row, driven by playability, the Iron Hands EX right here, Paradox Rift. You know, this is one where if you look at it over the last 6 months right there, it is up 117%, which is absolutely crazy, but it didn't get hot until middle of February, beginning of March, and then it just absolutely spiked up. Now, you'll see it starting to tail down a little bit over the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, probably as people start to fill their sets, as people realize, hey, listen, this is a valuable card. They're flooding the markets with it, so we're seeing the supply and demand start to balance out a little bit. But then when you look at the booster box right there, again, we just talked about Paldea Evolved at $110 a booster box. This one is at $98.70 a booster box for Paradox Rift. So hey, listen, cool card, love the playability, love that it's been on here a couple months in a row, but now we're about to make the turn into some cards that aren't that playable, but certainly are awesome to hold, and this is the Lugia V from Silver Tempest. I'm telling you right now, 3 months ago, this bad boy popped on the list, and we said, listen, this is a support line. Sword and Shield is selling out fast. Like, this card is going to pop off just with all the other alt arts. Now, we don't get any Einstein awards, like we don't get any kind of celebration for calling that out. I think we all know it, but it certainly has delivered. The other thing that's really interesting to me, if you look at this 1-year graph, as much as it's popped off, guess what? From a 1-year perspective, it is only up 4.6%. If you bought it in May of 2023 and you held it all the way till now, guess what? You're only up 4.6%, right? It dropped, and then it is absolutely shot through the roof with all of the other Sword and Shield insanity right now. So this Lugia V right here is still, in my mind, it probably still has a whole lot of room to run if everybody continues to be in love with Sword and Shield like I think they will. Speaking of being in love with Sword and Shield, my favorite card from the Sword and Shield block, doesn't mean it's going to be the most expensive, but it is number 1 in my heart, is the Gengar Vmax from Fusion Strike right here. Another card that popped on the list 3 months ago, another card that we said, listen, this thing is going to go absolutely ape, you know what, and guess what? It did. Now, compared to the Lugia was only up 4% over the last year. Guess what? This one's up 71.22%. This is a great example of a card that we knew was amazing. We knew Fusion Strike was amazing. We knew Sword and Shield was amazing. We had almost a year to buy this in the $225 range, and guess what? Either you did or you didn't, but irregardless, right now it's at $345. An awesome card, an awesome story, and at least for me, an awesome learning along the way. The next one, again, we're staying with the big dogs in the Sword and Shield era, this Giratina V from Lost Origin. Lost Origins officially sold out. This card is going to go for a run. It has been on the list for 6 consecutive months. There was no secret. Everybody was saying this card is going to be fire. Even though it's been on the list for 6 consecutive months, it was doing the same thing that Lugia was doing, right? It was working its way down, all the way till December when we saw it flatten out just a little bit. We said, hey, could this be the turning point? And then, like a scalded frickin' rabbit, up into the right, just absolutely blowing up. And now you got Lost Origin booster boxes up over $200. Absolutely insane. But this is a beautiful piece of artwork, a beautiful piece of Sword and Shield history, and I freaking love it. Now, coming in at number 2, this is going to surprise you. Yes, the Umbreon is number 2, the card that has been on here 7 consecutive months in a row. This card was number 1 for, I don't know, the last 3 or 4 months, but now it has been dethroned, moving to the number 2 spot. And I do something special for this Umbreon card. I have been tracking month over month the number of additional PSA 10s that are added to the population report, because I'm interested in how many of these awesome raw cards are out there that are being submitted to PSA and still turning into PSA 10s. Well, guess what? Last month there was 10,728 PSA 10 Gem Mint Umbreons. Well, now there's 11,077. A gain of 349. This is back-to-back months where we've seen about 350-ish additional of these be added into the PSA 10 population. And spoiler alert, I've shown you a ton of videos on a bunch of sealed product out there that has a ton of Evolving Skies. Evolving Skies is certainly not hard to get your hands on right now. So I think we're going to continue to see more of these added into the PSA 10 population. But it doesn't matter in my mind, right? Like, this is an iconic card. This card is going to continue to perform well. Yes, it's going to level off at some point. Yes, it'll probably regress in price. Like, it's at $871 right now. That is insane for an ultra modern Sword and Shield card. But hey, listen, the market is paying it. The market demands it. And right now, the getting is good for the old Umbreon card if you have it in your collection. Now, I talked about the booster boxes for Evolving Skies starting to slow down a little bit. Well, you'll see that over the last month, it's normalized right in the $700 range. Right now, they're in the $690 space. So again, huge price point for booster boxes, huge price point for this big chase card, and I am very excited to see how this continues to grow in the future. Now, the next one, coming in at number 1, an Ace Spec, right? An Ace Spec card. Like, I was very excited to see this up here again. As I said, you know, this is one of the cards, you can only have one in your deck, obviously purely driven by playability, but you see the price coming down, and I think with these Ace Spec cards in particular, since you do only have one of them, I think that they're going to be pulled really regularly when you're going ahead and opening and ripping your boxes. I think that these are going to be flooding onto the market. I think people get their one and then they leave, and again, if it's for playability, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the best condition that there is. So I think we'll start to see these come down, but even with that being said, it's still slightly up from where it started off a month ago. When this card came out, this is one of the big Ace Spec cards that everybody wants in their deck. It started off a little north of $24, and now it's up at $27.13. Again, do I expect it to hold on to that? Probably not. Not a super hard pull. I think that we'll see plenty of these out there, so I don't think this is going to be, you know, one that's going to get you rich in the long run, and especially once it rotates out, I think it's not going to be a huge collectible card. But I'm still excited to see this at number 1. I'm excited to see all the playability, but what we have seen in the past is after a month of playability, a lot of times we get really heavy into the investing side again and the collecting side again. So I can't wait to bring you this top 10 list next month. If you enjoyed the content and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. And as always, if you like what you see, give us a big old thumbs up. I appreciate you more than you can say. I hope you have an epic one, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks, everybody. Bye.